Well, we have a lot of apples and pears that we're gonna be processing today. My grandpa was so sweet. He called me up this morning and he said, "Are you home? I have some apples and pears that I got from the orchard that I wanna bring over if you wanna process them." And I said, of course, bring them on over. So he dropped off all of these apples and pears this morning.
A little soft, they're getting soft. But they're pretty darn good pears.
Oh, they look good.
See, they're still solid enough.
So, shout out to my grandpa. Thank you so much for all the yummy produce. I had the best grandpa. He is always bringing me over boxes of fresh, delicious produce, and I'm never gonna say no to that. So today we're gonna be making lots of yummy stuff with all of these pears and apples. There's a lot of apples and pears here, so we're gonna be busy. I don't know the exact variety of these apples or pears. My grandpa didn't tell me that, and I forgot to ask. I'll have to give him a call later and find out. If I find out the information about what the varieties are, I'll leave them in the description box below in case anyone's interested. And if he doesn't know, then it's just gonna remain a mystery. But I'm sure they'll taste delicious, even if we don't know their exact names. The first thing I wanna make is some pear butter. I think I'm also gonna put some apples in there as well to bump up the acidity a little bit. And we're gonna can that up once it's done so that we can enjoy it all winter long. My favorite way to eat pear butter or apple butter is just spread on a warm piece of toast or biscuit. So I'm excited to have lots of jars of that. There's quite a wide range of sizes and colors amongst these apples. Some are yellow with some red. There's some solid green ones and ones that have more red color as well. And the sizes are pretty variant too. The kids had found some really tiny apples and were eating them as a snack. They thought they were so cute. They kept saying, "Little baby apples." And they definitely do look like little baby apples, especially when you put them next to a big one. Now these ones obviously don't have as much flesh on them. They will take a little extra processing than the big ones. To start making our pear butter, we just need to wash, peel, and core all of these pears. I just grabbed a few towels to lay out on the counter to let the pears and apples drip dry after we wash them.
I plan on peeling these pears, but I wanted to go ahead and give them a thorough washing regardless, just to make sure they got nice and clean. I laid them out on a towel after I washed them, just to let them drip dry a little bit. One of my kitchen towels says, "Give thanks." A friend of mine gave that to me. It's always a good reminder to be thankful for what you have. And I've said it already, but I'll say it again. I'm definitely thankful for all these pears and apples. And I'm thankful for babies that cooperate for processing. You may see a few toes that are wiggling around in and out of the frame. The baby's in the carrier, and he's being such a good helper to help me process these today too.
Look at the little baby apple. How many do we have?
Two.
Two?
Yeah.
Just two?
Yeah.
The apples and pears are all washed and put out on the counter now. Now it's time to peel and core them. The kids helped me wash the apples and the pears, and I think the floor got wetter and cleaner than the apples and the pears did, but they had a lot of fun, which is the most important part. So now let's peel and core all of these pears and take out any bad spots to get ready to make our pear butter, apple butter, pear, apple butter, the combination of the two. As I am peeling and coring these pears, I'm gonna put them into the Vitamix blender and blend them up into a puree. Then we're gonna add that into our crock pot. And that is going to be the foundation base of our pear butter. That's what we're making first off today is the pear butter. I'm gonna make as much as I can in the crock pot, as much will fit anyway. And then we might put some in the Instant Pot too as well, if it doesn't all fit into the crock pot. There's definitely a lot of pears here to process, So let's get after it. Ryan got me this Vitamix blender for my birthday this year. It's definitely a luxury item and it's kind of pricey, but it's so nice. It's very high powered. It blends up things with no water. It works really well. I'll link it in the description, but it's so nice. I really do love my blender. You don't have to have the Vitamix brand. Any food processor or blender would work, but the Vitamix blender is really nice. These pears that we're working with today are pretty soft. They're a little squishy and they're very, very sweet though. The skin on these was also starting to just basically peel right off. Here's some that just sort of started to peel off as I was washing them. They're definitely ready to be processed and enjoyed. Receiving gifts and giving gifts is definitely my love language. There's a book I've talked about on our channel before called The 5 Love Languages, which is a really great book. It talks about showing other people love in the way they want to receive love, not necessarily in the way you want to receive love, if that makes sense. For example, I love receiving gifts. So whenever someone gives me a gift, I feel the most loved. However, Ryan is not that way. If I give him a gift, of course he's appreciative, but that's not the way he feels most loved. He prefers words of affirmation and when I've encouraged him. So my grandpa bringing me these pears and apples definitely makes me feel loved, and I'm really grateful for it. These apples and pears are a wonderful gift, and I'm super grateful for them. The best gift I've ever received, though, has to be my salvation and the security in knowing that when I die, I'm gonna go to heaven. I believe as a Christian, everyone ends up in one of two places, either heaven or hell. And I would not be doing my due diligence as a believer if I didn't share that with you guys. I've never shied away from sharing my faith here on our channel, and that's something I don't ever want to do because it's too important. I just ran and grabbed my Bible real quick. Romans 6:23 says, "For the wages of sin is death, but the free gift of God is eternal life in Jesus Christ our Lord." I wanted to make sure I got it word for word how the Bible says it, but the best gift in life that you could ever receive that lasts not only for your life but for eternity is putting your faith and your trust in Jesus. All you have to do is share your heart with God and say a simple prayer saying you believe in him and you will be saved. Romans 10:13 says, "For everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved." All you really have to do is reach out and call to him. A simple prayer, he's always listening, and that's all it takes. I don't know who needed to hear that, but I felt compelled to share that, so I just wanted to take a little detour from apple and pear butter making to share that with you guys. And if you want to talk more about it, feel free to leave a comment or send me an email. Our information's in the description, and I'll be sure to respond.
I have a KitchenAid spiralizer attachment that goes on the front of the stand mixer that I use a lot of times to peel and core apples. I thought about using that for the pears, but these pears are a little bit softer, and that stand mixer attachment really does its best job when you're using a firmer fruit or vegetable. The Vitamix blender did not need any water like I expected. It just pureed these right up. So that was nice. It'll definitely help speed up the process when it comes time to rendering down all these pears into that pear butter. I always want to say apple butter, but we're making pear butter first, then an apple pear butter.
I kind of overflowed it a little bit. Hopefully it all blends without exploding everywhere. We're about to find out. I wasn't quite sure how that would go because I definitely filled it way over the max fill line there, but it didn't explode and go all over the place, so that was nice. That would have been quite the mess to clean up. It did a really good job pureeing everything up, and I'm gonna put this mixture straight into the crock pot to let it render down to make our apple butter, pear butter mixture. I'm gonna add some apples in here too. Right now it's basically a very thin applesauce, but out of pears. That filled it up about halfway, so I'm gonna do one more container because this will render down quite a bit. This first batch is so much darker than the second batch already. I just have a normal standard size crock pot, and 2 of these blenders completely filled up with the pear puree mixture, filled up the crock pot perfectly. This particular one, it's 8 cups if you fill it to the max line, and I went above that, so probably another cup, so maybe like 9 cups per blender full of the pureed mixture. Now we just need to add all of our other ingredients. I'm gonna do a little bit of experimenting today and kind of creating this recipe as we go. So I'm gonna add some ingredients now, let it cook down, taste it, and then see if I need to add more ingredients to adjust the flavor. And I'll be sure to measure as I go and add everything together to actually know what I did so that I can replicate it next year. I'm not always the best about writing what I put into recipes down so that I know exactly how I did it. I normally just wing it, but today I'm gonna do better. I'm gonna write it down, or video it anyway. The first thing I'm gonna add is some lemon juice. I'm gonna do 1/3 a cup of lemon juice. Pears don't have quite as much acidity as apples do, so for canning purposes, because I do plan on canning this, I'm gonna add quite a bit of lemon juice just to make sure it's safe for canning. And then I'm gonna start with 1 tablespoon of cinnamon, and we're also gonna put in some honey. I'm gonna start with about 1/3 a cup of honey. I'll probably end up adding more honey later on, but sometimes when you cook things down, they get sweeter. So we'll see how it tastes before I add more. Yeah, let's actually just do 1 tablespoon of cinnamon, 1/3 a cup of lemon juice, and 1/3 a cup of honey. And I'm gonna cook it on low, stirring every hour or so. It'll probably take quite a while to cook down. I'd already poured this into the crock pot, so I didn't want to put it back in the blender, but I probably should have put all these ingredients and blended them up in the blender. My children are being dinosaurs. I probably should have put all these ingredients into the blender and blended it up before adding it to the crock pot. It would have been stirred up and incorporated a little better. But I'm gonna stir it every hour or so as it cooks down to make sure nothing burns and keep things moving, and I'll keep you guys updated as it cooks.
Before we process some more pears, I need to take care of a couple things for dinner.
This is a French loaf of sourdough, so I just need to shape it into 2 logs basically and get them proofing away for dinner tonight.
I put together the dough for the sourdough French bread yesterday. I mixed it up in my KitchenAid stand mixer with the dough hook. It makes it go by pretty quick. When I make bread for just my family, I typically just put it back in the same bowl that I mixed it up with instead of a clean bowl, even though that's what you're supposed to do. And then I just swirl around some oil and let it proof in that. The recipe that I follow for this sourdough French bread always tastes really good. I'll put the recipe up here on the screen. If you want to pause the video and screenshot it, feel free to do so. Today, however, I did overproof this dough by quite a bit, so we'll see how it turns out. Normally it turns out good, but today it might look a little funky. This recipe makes 2 loaves of French bread. I gently just kind of spread it out into a rough rectangle shape and then roll up each loaf, pinching the seams. I did this really quickly and did not take that much time to make it look aesthetically pleasing today. I just wanted to get it in the oven and then get it in our tummies.
That definitely was not my prettiest shaping job for rolling up those loaves, but it'll still taste good. Those are a lot of sun gold. Grab this bag. I just grabbed a bag of cherry tomatoes out of the deep freezer for tonight's supper. I still have a lot of pears and apples left to peel up this evening, so I just want a quick and easy supper for tonight's dinner. I'm not gonna overcomplicate things tonight. I'm using this roasting pan to roast these cherry tomatoes in the oven, and we're just gonna make a little bit of a sauce out of that. When you roast them, it'll release a bunch of juices, and that kind of makes a really yummy, delicious sauce. And we'll put that over some pasta with our homemade French bread, and that's gonna be our supper. And you can roast these just from frozen. Just a drizzle of olive oil. Some basil. Garlic. Salt. And pepper. It's really pretty simple, nothing fancy. We're just gonna roast this in the oven. It will take a little bit longer because the tomatoes are frozen than if you would use fresh tomatoes, but I just keep an eye on it until it looks done, and then we'll put it over some pasta. And I have the French bread in the oven too.
Finding different ways to use up your sourdough discard is a great way to make sure you're not wasting anything. I've kept my sourdough starter for years now, and I've never had to throw away sourdough discard. I always use it up. Yesterday, I also made some sourdough crackers with our discard. And one of the best tips I can give you guys for making sourdough crackers is to roll out your sourdough between 2 sheets of parchment paper. It makes the process go by a lot quicker, plus you don't have to wash your rolling pin because it never gets dirty, and they're delicious. I have more detailed videos about how to make sourdough crackers on our channel. You can find it pretty easily by looking at our Cook With Me playlist, which you can see all the cooking videos in one playlist. Normally I score the sourdough crackers, but this batch we just broke up into pieces.
It's now day 2 of preparing and cooking up these apples and pears. The Instant Pot and the slow cooker have been going all night with our pear puree with the honey and cinnamon and lemon juice that we mixed up yesterday. The Instant Pot, I initially tried to do it on pressure cook. I pressure cooked it for 20 minutes and then manually flipped the vent to let it steam up. Learn from my mistake. Put a towel or something over the vent on the lid because it splattered pear puree all over the cabinets as it was shooting up. I quickly covered a towel so it didn't get too out of control, but it did make a little bit of a mess. That did not really work for me. It didn't thicken up at all. So then I turned it to just the slow cooker setting here on the Instant Pot, and it's been running for about, I don't know, 8 hours now on the slow cook setting. I just now switched it to saute to try to get it going a little bit faster, but as you can see, it's still pretty liquidy. I want it to get a lot thicker than this for the pear butter. This will eventually turn into that. This is not burnt. It's simply just darker in color from rendering down and cooking. You can see it's pretty thick. And that's what we want for the pear butter. You saw yesterday, this crock pot was filled completely to the top with the pear puree. I'd say it's reduced by about 2/3, and it's thickened up nicely. So this is done. This particular batch, I'm happy with. We just need to let the Instant Pot one cook down more. And I just had Ryan and the kids test it, and they all said it was sweet enough and I didn't need to add any extra sugar. And there's only a little bit of honey in here, so I'm really pleased with that. For time's sake tonight, I think I'm gonna go ahead and can up what's in the crock pot, and that way I can get another batch going because I have a lot more puree to put up. I have my water bath canners and my pressure canners all set up on the oven here. I'm going to do as much as I can at once. After this crock pot is completely empty with the pear puree, I'm gonna do the remaining apples and pear puree and just make another batch of what I've got there. I got the lids off of all my jars and ready to prep those for canning.
I'm going to be evenly distributing this pear butter across the jars, leaving a 1/4 inch headspace, and then water bath canning them for 15 minutes.
In the crock pot now, I did the exact same recipe I did before, but with half apples and half pears. So that's gonna be an apple/pear butter. So we're gonna have some pear butter and apple/pear butter. I'm gonna finish canning up all of this pear butter and apple butter. If you wanna see how many jars we end up with, go follow us over on Instagram. I'll leave a link to our account in the description. I'll do a post over there about how many we end up with over the next couple days. I might do a few more batches, we'll see. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you all have a great rest of your day. And if you haven't subscribed or liked today's video yet, then please consider doing so.